Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Melman Podcast. My name is Zach Marzo.
David Melman.
David Melman is here as usual. Awesome guests with us today. Very excited. Carolyn Knaus is the founder of Make a Miracle. Her and her husband, Jack, which she may mention, and Sarah Sinclair is here as well with donor relations. She's in charge of what Make a Miracle. She'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Awesome nonprofit organization. I don't want to talk too much about what they do. They're the specialists with that. I just want to turn it over to you, Carolyn, if you want to kick us off. Share a little bit about Make a Miracle. How you got to where you're really at today. What jump started all of this.
Well, it goes back a ways. I have 3 daughters, and my oldest daughter was studying Spanish. She was in high school, and our neighbors knew about a mission trip to Peru, and I was like, why don't you just go down to Peru and practice your Spanish? And I thought it would be good for her as a teenager to see perspective as well of how different cultures live. And she said, yeah, all right. So she went for a week and ended up staying for a whole month.
Wow.
It
Very
just
cool.
touched her so much.
Sure.
And just kind of changed her in a great way on her personality and all that, just like really bonded with this group of young teenagers she went down with. I think she was 15 at the time.
Sure.
So she went for a couple more summers. And then one year I was like, well, my other daughters were growing up, and it's like, why don't we all go together? And so just the girls went, me and my 3 daughters, the youngest being 8 or 9 at the time. I think it was 2009. And it was pretty cool. It's like,
Sure.
wow, this is really interesting. And went back again 2 years later with the kids again. And then eventually got my husband, Jack, involved. And he was really resistant at first. He would probably not want me to say that. But,
Sure, it's all right.
The girls, honestly, it was spring break. And we applied for a mission trip with our church and did not get chosen because
Sure.
it's a big church. It's a mega church here. And so I said, well, maybe we can just go down to Peru on our own and stay at the women's shelter called Pat's Place that we always stay at with the groups. And he's like, why don't we go to Disney World?
Right.
And the kids, I said, ask the kids, let the 3 of them choose. And they were just like, Peru.
Sure.
It was
Amazing.
not even a doubt of
Sure.
where they wanted to go. So we get down there and we're staying at this women's shelter. And in the morning we open the door because we had gotten in at 1 a.m. And this little girl named Ciela was 4 or 5 at the time, sneaks down and she looks through the door and she goes and runs into my husband's arms. And he gives her this big hug and he looked at Rachel and he goes, I think I'm going to like it here.
That's
and
awesome.
honestly, it just had his heart from day one. And so we started kind of supporting some of the girls in college because there's really no government support for college. There's absolutely no financial aid like we have here. We're so lucky and blessed to have that in our country.
Right.
So we started paying for a couple girls to go to college, and it just more and more need was seen. And we said, we just can't just put all of Peru through college on our own. So we founded Make a Miracle for that
Very
reason.
cool.
And then it's kind of expanded.
Were you in the nonprofit sector, if you will, for lack of a better word, before this?
No, we were in bowling.
Wow.
So my husband owned, and I own a chain of bowling alleys.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very
So
nice.
we were not anything on our radar for nonprofit, never been trained in that.
Right.
We were both finance majors in college.
Sure.
So we just honestly figured it out as we went.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think for, Jack not, necessarily knowing if he, wanted to get into that, I think it speaks to trying something you may be uncomfortable with because you never really know where it'll end up. Because if he was just hard-headed, I'm not doing this, you'd never really be where you're at, today. So I think that's really cool.
And sometimes you need a push from your daughters.
Sure. Yeah.
You do. They're the ones
Exactly.
that, if they would have, imagine if they said Disney World.
Yeah, no kidding.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
One decision and what happens then.
It would have impacted so many lives.
Totally.
That one choice, yes.
And it's great to see where it's baby steps. Sometimes people think it's impossible to do something because the vision is too large. But they don't break it down where if you start here and you gradually grow, you can get there. A lot of people might think sometimes they only see the end result and it's impossible. But if you break it down to baby steps, like you said, you couldn't put everybody through college right away. Maybe
No,
1 or
and-
2 kids.
And he may have told me 100 times Rome was not built in a day because
Sure.
I wanted to be
Right.
Sure.
Sure.
100 students day one.
Sure.
And
that's where you can break it down and have a team and that supports you and can bring things to you so you can do it at a good pace where you're comfortable with also, but it's not more than you can chew. Because when you get to that point, it can get unorganized, but it sounds like baby steps, which is what you did, You went there with your family, and the next thing you know, look what you have here,
And how does, I guess, with I know nonprofits, there's like fundraisers you guys perhaps do. There's just private, donations from, people there. Is that like, what else? How do you, I guess, target people when you first started saying, hey, I want to try to collect some money here to really make a difference? So many nonprofits out there, you have to kind of really feel connected to that particular purpose, mission, whatever. How did you guys like know where to even really start with? Where do we find money to continue to do this?
So we just really started with our friends
Yeah.
and family,
Sure,
and they
sure.
supported us. And we have a board of directors, which was mostly friends and family at the time. We've expanded somewhat since then, but really expanded we have a corporate drive. And so a lot of that is through Stars and Strikes, my husband's business,
Cool.
who they just go to our vendors and vendors that they have good relationships with
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, we support our cause. And a lot of them do, which is wonderful. And then we have lots of individual donors, and we have several events a year, which also helps. So it all comes together.
Right.
We've actually gotten a couple grants too. So we've gotten
Nice.
grants
Wow.
from different organizations.
Sure.
So it all kind of came together.
Is
for
that where Sarah kind of comes into play with that? I mean, you, I guess, day to day, you can even explain just a little bit kind of what your role is, or, how you, fit into Make a Miracle, how you got here.
Well, I met Carolyn through a friend, Carmen, who was already supporting a student in college for a few years. Trusted Carmen, and
Cool.
we met Carolyn, and we started sponsoring one young girl at the time a couple of years ago. We've just picked up a second student.
Great.
So I originally met Carolyn. I was just a sponsor myself.
Sure.
So,
cool.
and then I guess with this downtime in COVID,
Right.
I had too much of it and wanted to make good use of my time.
Sure.
So got with Carolyn and came on as donor relations manager, mostly handling and keeping communication between the students, like we said on the Zoom calls.
Right.
Setting up, keeping the students connected with their sponsors. And that
Sure.
has been very touching
Sure.
and keeps everybody well connected and getting to know the students and yeah.
I can't
So-
imagine just like,
I also do the fundraisers, and I help with.
Okay.
I'm doing my own fundraiser here soon.
Cool.
in a few weeks, right?
Yes,
Very
yes.
cool. Tell us about that after, so
Okay, great,
everybody can
yeah.
hear. And that's you have to be creative to do all that, put ideas together. And when you do them here, is it mostly local in Atlanta, or is it are you staying in this area? Are you going to different states, or is it pretty much here in Atlanta, Georgia? Is that where you're pretty much
As of now, it's all here.
as of now here?
As of now, we'd love to
Okay.
expand as we grow.
Absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
majority of I guess just to clarify that, basically the money you guys have raised or raise is just in the state, basically.
For
Maybe-
events.
For
Gotcha.
events.
I will
Right.
say for the college scholarship students that we get sponsors for, we've expanded throughout the
Cool.
country.
Nice.
And for our corporate partners and that type of thing.
Right, right.
But for the events, we don't have any events outside of the Atlanta area at this time.
And there being so many, children in Peru, and how do you, I guess, know who's going to get the scholarship, right? Like how, the sponsor picks. How does that work, if you don't mind, just so I can kind of understand better?
Sure.
Yeah, it's really neat.
It's grown. So in Peru, there's a lot of, and probably with any underprivileged culture,
Sure.
a lot of dishonesty and a lot of mistrust and that type of thing.
course.
So we don't just put out applications on the streets and say, here.
Right.
We've started small with people we knew. We started with girls that have been living at the women's shelter Pat's place.
Right.
We've grown our network. So as we've grown, it's all by recommendation.
Sure.
And then they fill out an application. We interview them. We really try to see who's got like the gumption and the grit to get through it. It's
Right.
not necessarily straight A student.
Sure.
It's not the saddest story, which is really hard. Sometimes you just want
I'm
to
sure.
I can't
give it to
imagine.
the ones with they
Yeah.
all have really extreme stories, I would say.
Sure.
But we want to give it to the ones that will finish their degree first of all, will stay in San Juan de Lurigancho, and then help change their community and be that impetus for change and really expanding all the good that's going
That's
on.
great.
Make a miracle.
For sure. It's nice when they can stay there, like you said, and spread it more, the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge, and also just the will to give back. I can imagine how good of a feeling it is seeing those Zoom calls come
We
in.
have two
and-
recent graduates who are turning around and gonna
That's amazing.
volunteer
Those are
at
like-
the.
yeah.
We're doing our biggest project right now. It is a wellness center. They're going to have medical treatment,
Right,
and we'll have veterinary care and dental care. And so 2 of our students are turning around and donating all of their free time
Amazing.
to help that community.
Imagine how we always talk about
that
planting
is-
seeds, like you're not
Yes.
seeds, but they are. You plant like great seeds and they blossom, and then eventually you're gonna have a forest, and then it's gonna be an unstoppable machine. In a good way. That's how
Yes.
that's how I think of it.
Yeah.
And all starting from, I want to go there and not Disney. It's crazy. I don't know. I'm going to keep going back to that, but it's amazing.
I love it.
Sounds like really nice kids to even pick something else over Disney.
And these kids, my kids are great, but the scholarship students honestly have these huge hearts for helping others, and they've always been given handouts. If a lot of them haven't had food security, they haven't had running water or anything like that, and just to see them turn around and be able to help people and be able to build houses. We've had a fire Saturday. They're going to go rebuild this house that was just destroyed in a fire. They're also building a soup kitchen for food security for whole community.
Sure.
So it's cool to see these kids give back. But in order to get into the program, somebody has to vouch for them.
Right.
It might be where you have a cousin who you just know is this great guy. He just has never been able to study.
Right.
So you're going to vouch as his cousin, be like, he's a great guy, because we know if he steals or if anything, if he causes drama, if there's anything bad, we're going to go right back to you and say like, and thank God we have 80 students right now. We have never had a problem with anything like that. We've, and as time goes on, as they all get jobs, we have 10 of the 80 have graduated already.
Right.
As they get jobs and move up, they'll be hiring more kids from the program because they know the values that we instill in them, being on time, being trustworthy, helping others, and just being a kind, good person.
It sounds like a great structure you set up to have 80 there, and it flows. They want to be there. They want to help. It's not like somebody's forced. And if you have 80 people that are there and there hasn't been really issues like that, it's amazing. It sounds like the structure is there and the system is down. And that's what it is, because to put it all together, it's not just ideas. You have to execute ideas and structure and the right people in place to make sure that they care enough to do the right job. And it's not easy. I can't imagine. My next question is, what is the most difficult part of the every day-to-day, if you don't mind me asking, because it's not great things happen, but we're behind the scenes here. There's things that go down where, uncontrollable events, for example, what just happened here with what we're dealing with to begin with, and then other things. Like, what's the most difficult thing for you guys to overcome? And
for us, it's the distance, I would say. The distance and the language barrier. Sarah's starting to learn Spanish. I've started to learn since my first trip when I couldn't say one word. And I called, I was handing out toothbrushes, and I called the toothbrush shoes when I was handing them out. My kids never let me forget that. So I've gotten really pretty good at Spanish. But I would say that's a Rachel question for the hardest part about our actual work that we do, because she is down there.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, we'll save that for that. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the most challenging part for me that I'm finding is going to be finding new outlets and ways to reach new people instead of going back.
Right.
That is a huge challenge.
I wish I could say that in a better way.
Sure.
But,
that's perfectly
I'm
said.
finding that to be my biggest struggle right now. And
Do you guys have, I always just think when we want to do something like for the holidays, a lot of times it's either, donating or being a part of some other cause or trying to do something on our own. But we always want to be like a little more hands-on, which is tough because you ask for donations and things. And you're like, I don't know where it's going. And that's okay, but it's always cool. And I think people, which is why the Zoom stuff is awesome, where you can establish that connection so they almost feel like they're doing more than just, writing a check or something like that, which is really cool. But my thought is, and you may have, a bunch of this stuff, is there anybody, even recording, I'm always thinking like media recording or shooting video over there, like what's going on, building stuff, because I would just think like being able to connect with that, would help somebody decide to put their money somewhere else because they see what's going on. You guys are like vlogging or, just shooting what's really happening over there. And, people are, seeing it for themselves.
Vlogging. Absolutely. That's huge.
Yeah.
How do you get seen? Like, what is how do you get seen?
Our main way of showing people who haven't been, coming down to Peru is the best.
Yeah, the best way.
When we bring people down, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe how big Make a Miracle is down here. Like, I had no idea.
Right.
And then they meet students, and this girl needs a scholarship, so-and-so. And it's like, oh, I love this girl. I'm going to sponsor her. So that is our best way to get donors, just to actually see them. But the next best thing is video.
Sure.
We actually have a great girl who's a videographer who works for the Georgia Bulldogs for football.
Sure.
She's a football videographer, and she does our videos. And
That's
if you
sweet.
look at our YouTube channel back, 3, 4, 5 years ago, our videos were very basic, and now they've gotten really, really great. So we do share a lot with that.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
That's great. Cool. And, to go back to your question, getting outside donors that are not the same people, and, social media is so powerful. And that's what we're seeing every single day in our business. Content is king. Having a great platform and multiple platforms on there, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everything, and being so engaged with it, where you just keep spreading it. And the more active you are, the more people will see you. They say like too much content is too much. I'm not like the more the better, in my opinion, right? And if they get sick of you, they unfollow. Like they get sick of us, unfollow. But out of the one that unfollows, 10 will keep watching it, right? So it's that power of social media to reach everything, to spread that word. We're really big on that. We're trying to leverage that more next year. We're big on relationships, so we nurture our relationships in our world. But there's only a certain amount of relationships you have eventually when the relationships run out. Right. So then you have to kind of figure out their relationships with the people that they might know. So it's like a web, and you got to keep digging. But social media, like a two-headed monster with social media and leveraging, in our world leveraging, but it's a good thing. We nurture relationships. I don't mean to use the word leverage. Nurture relationships. It goes a long way. And it takes time, It takes time, Not everything happens overnight, like you said. And we see that too. We're 5 years in our everyday job, but slow and steady, doing it the right way, the honest way. Shortcuts don't work. Eventually the truth comes out, So shortcuts don't work. Just working hard. And I can't imagine the feeling of going to Peru and seeing these children and the person that you might even be sponsoring. I couldn't even imagine, It's just incredible.
It's the best feeling. It's like, if you can just imagine like the most extreme love you've ever felt, that's what it feels like to be there.
Sure.
And I just love bringing friends down, acquaintances, business people, and just seeing like how their heart changes, and they just feel like
the families and how grateful they are. Like the
so
father the other day of one of the students coming on one of our Zoom meetings and just bawling his eyes out and thanking Carolyn, and it was just,
and just thanking
it's
Make a
overwhelming.
Miracle and thanking the sponsor, who is a woman in New Jersey.
Right.
The gratitude is, and that's what you feel from all of them down there. And he just was so so thankful. He says, like, I thank God every day for you, for Make a Miracle, for the sponsor, so that my daughter can study. And he just,
It's, you see your kids every morning, and they love you. They give you a kiss. They're in a hurry. They're goodbye. But somebody else that doesn't have everything that we give our children every single day, the means to a good education or, decent food or whatever it may be, right? I'm going to say they take for granted, because they do. And my children do every day. And I got to remind them sometimes, it's not like this for everyone, to put them back into reality, because the reality is it's not like that for everyone. But to see somebody else that really just very appreciative. I'm sure they're very appreciating, and the family as well.
What is the power of the U.S. dollar in Peru, and why, Peru, if you're talking to donors, and they probably give you a bunch of, questions on why there, why not elsewhere, how do you kind of combat that?
Right. That is a commonly asked question. And I would say how far the dollar goes is really important. You can't put a U.S. Student through college for $100 a month for their 3-year or 4-year, 5-year school.
Sure.
It's very powerful how far the dollar goes down there. What you can take in U.S. dollars, you can build a home, for $1,200. You can build a family a home.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's
Yeah,
powerful.
sure.
You're not talking about a Band-Aid or helping with the situation. You're talking about changing someone's life.
And it's important because people that are listening probably like, I don't have, $25,000 just to give away or something. And you're literally talking about anything helps.
A college education,
10, 20, 30, 40.
$3,600.
Yeah.
For the whole...
For a 3-year education.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah. Right.
And a good education.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
So the average family in the area where we work, it's these hill communities. Lima is a desert. It's called San Juan de Lurigancho. I should start this.
You guys are getting, yeah, go ahead.
Give you the average dollar
It's
amount.
not live. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, where you guys are, like, from all the pictures that I've seen, it looks like, you guys are hiking everywhere you go. It's so hilly, so you're probably getting, crazy work out there, but, share more about, the families, that are there, and how, we were talking about how far the dollar goes, in regards to, living there, and it, they don't need a ton of money to do anything, because our dollar is just, more powerful and will provide a lot, over there, which is great.
Well, the area we go is called San Juan de Lurigancho, and it is the poorest district of Lima. Lima has 40-something districts. I forget the exact number. But this is the largest district with over 1 million people, and the most impoverished. So we go to the hills. So it's a desert in Lima, and the hill communities where we work, you are hiking up and down the mountains.
Right.
There's little houses all the way up. And so that's where we build, and that's where most of our students live, in the hill communities. and their average income per capita per family is $192 a month.
A month.
Wow.
So
Per family.
somebody
Per
who
family.
get per
family.
family. So somebody who
family.
even can donate $20, that's so much more impactful than donating $20 in the States, because the U.S. dollar is just really, really powerful down there.
Sure, sure. I mean, it sounds
goes
like
far.
it.
Money goes really far.
Right.
We were, well, I won't talk about the pandemic. I'll let Rachel talk
Sure.
about that.
Yeah.
But it was like 17 cents a meal to
How do
feed
you
a
get,
kid.
and it's always,
wow.
I always wonder how like nonprofits get into, you're at, Target and they're like, would you like to donate $1 to St. Jude's or something like that? Which I always like, I feel bad saying no, but I'm not connected to that in any way, which a lot of people probably feel. Sometimes you'll do it, sometimes you won't, but I'm just thinking from like a donor perspective, they probably do, do like even having a statistic there, like, the families we're supporting in the Hills live on $192 a month. So your dollar, like it goes a long way, and people may be more likely to do that, but I think it'd be cool to, I don't know how you'd get into something like that. Maybe not as big as Target, maybe, who knows?
Stars and Stripes.
But that's
Maybe.
what,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, sure, exactly.
They're
You're,
everywhere.
you got a
Yeah.
bowling game, you want to throw up
Sure.
an extra $5 towards this or that or whatever, which I think if I was putting myself in your guys' shoes, maybe in the beginning, you feel like, you're asking for something, but the worst thing that happens is someone's like, no, thank you. And then the best thing that happens is they're helping and they learn more about it and all that stuff.
Right.
But the Hills and the Hollywood Hills and the Hills over there, I think it would be a cool thing to kind of swap it out, because I'm sure the Hollywood Hills and Beverly Hills, could learn a lot more about life going
Right.
Yeah.
going over there,
And one good thing I think too that we have going for us, that a lot of nonprofits like St. Jude's, great
sure.
cause, but they have a lot of payroll.
Right.
And for us, we are all volunteer based in the U.S.
Oh, wow,
Sarah,
that's
myself, we work 40 hours a week plus.
Sure.
We have a team of there's 13 board members and maybe 6 or 7 volunteers in the States that work tirelessly for this effort. In Peru, we have Rachel. Let me think. Okay, so I'd say down in Peru, we have approximately 10 people on our
Right.
team, and they do get paid
Right. Sure. Sure.
smaller salaries because, like I said, that the dollar goes so much further down there. But I think people can give, knowing we don't have a CEO that makes $1 million a year, like
Right.
a lot of these larger nonprofits.
We see it. I see
Yeah.
the ad come up where like the top 10, and then you realize where it goes, and it's like scary. And we were a couple years ago, we did something towards the holidays, and it was just so like sloppy. It wasn't organized, like the box and picking it up. Then we had to try.
Yeah, like the gifts were late.
It was weird.
It wasn't even going to be
So-
on time,
so-
and we're like, why are we going to donate
Yeah.
to this? We should do our own thing.
And that's what we did. So last year we found it was like a domestic violence shelter for women. What was it?
Yeah, it was just
exactly? It was a lot of,
the
Atlanta.
plugging them. It's a great organization. Just
Bless you.
Atlanta Children's Shelter is there, but it's a unique. They do a lot more. But basically, we just volunteered our time to hang out with the kids. We had a Santa dress up and brought them some gifts because the majority of their parents are homeless, and so this is just a place for the kids to go while they're educating the parents to get a job, put them in housing, that type of thing. So we love it.
and the feeling of being there, like you say, when your people go there, it doesn't compare to just giving something.
Right.
Right. So to get there is, I'm sure, an amazing feeling, and then seeing it, it's over. Like once they see it, that's it. So
Right.
you got to get them to see it.
Yeah.
That's
and
the
this was
mission.
One of our guys that came down, he
Yeah.
was like, after he made his connections with his sponsored kids, they sponsored a second one.
Right.
He's like, you almost can't not go back.
Right.
Like you have these connections, but even for people who can't go down there, they can sponsor a college student, and it's a great relationship. Sarah could probably tell you, but you're there to encourage them and support them and talk with them, and it's a really amazing relationship.
Yes, even
right there.
without have been being there yet for
Right.
myself.
Sure.
This coming year will be my first trip there in July. Just connecting with Maria, one of my students that we sponsored through the program, just the FaceTime calls through WhatsApp. They have an app there that's
Right.
easier to connect with.
Sure.
And texting and keeping in touch with school grades, which I'm responsible for sending those out to the sponsors.
Right.
That's a great way to stay super connected and get more people connected without having even been there.
Not even being there, but just
Yeah.
staying connected to
It's
technology.
it's so powerful. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like to actually be there.
Right.
So
Yeah, and how long do you plan on going there for when you're there? What is the
week.
typical time a week, right?
She has a baby at home, so if
Yeah.
not, I'd probably make her stay a little longer. But she's got her baby to get back to.
Yeah.
A week will be great.
Sure.
7 days max.
We feel a lot in those days.
Yeah. How long is the flight from here to there?
Yeah,
It's only
I was
six
thinking
and
the
a half
same.
hours.
That's it?
And there's
Direct?
direct flight.
Wow.
Delta goes from Atlanta
Cool.
to Lima, and
Okay.
it's only about 45 minutes to where we stay.
Nice.
Great.
From the airport. So it's super easy to get
Yeah.
to. It's it's just it's a super easy place.
Faster than Hawaii.
No time change.
Yeah.
Faster than
A lot
Hawaii.
faster.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
it's very easy for our
I didn't know that. I would think there'd be stops, so it's good to know even that. Really cool. Getting over there. I want to hear a story. I'd love to hear a story. Rachel.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys? Is there anything? So we just for people that are watching and listening, we have Rachel and Jason who just got back from Peru. They'll be, trading. What's that called? Musical chairs here in a second.
Yeah.
And sharing a little bit more. But is there anything else you guys want to share? Maybe the next fundraiser or what's happening in 2020, or where's the best place maybe people can find you guys if they want to check it out, want to make a difference, want to talk to somebody. You have that extra $20-$25 a month that can go a very, very long way, as you hear, which is kind of news to me. You think, I don't know, just so much more money. But when you break it down, perhaps not every dollar adds up. But
Yeah, tell us, please.
Yeah, well, as I was telling Dave, we do have the upcoming poker tournament fundraiser that we are
Cool.
having at Tannery Row Ale House
Right.
in Buford.
In Buford.
Buford. And it's going to be on December the 5th. And this one is specifically for Christmas in Peru.
Okay.
Nice.
COVID has affected everyone, but it has really affected Peru the most, with the most deaths per capita. And it's
Really?
just been a
Wow.
long, exhausting year for them. They had the longest lockdown, the strictest lockdown, which we can let Rachel tell you more
Sure.
about.
Sure.
But so it'll be good to bring some Christmas cheer to them. We're not only going to send out gift baskets and boxes with food and the standard dinner or traditional dinner there.
Sure.
We're also going to provide them with what they like to call, there's a word for it,
chocolatada.
chocolatada for their cocoa parties, so
Okay.
that the kids can actually have one of their just typical traditions.
Sure. Absolutely.
Bring some cheer for them. I'm sure they won't be expecting
Yeah.
it.
So we're going to provide for 14 communities that
Wow.
we work with. These chocolatada parties, which has panettone and these huge pots of hot chocolate that
Sure.
is made in a very special Peruvian way.
Cool.
And so they'll
Sounds
be able to
good.
celebrate in their traditional way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And get with me. We talked last week about
Some
the table
normalcy.
because I can't play in that tournament. My wife won't let me go there on the weekend because I have to be with my family. But get with me for that tournament so I can get that table. Remember we talked
please.
about that?
Absolutely.
So there you
Awesome.
go. So
you
please
so
remind
much.
me. Of course. Thank you.
Okay.
For sure. So
you.
get with me with that. And yeah, absolutely. And what else we have going on? We have that going on in December. What are plans for 2021?
Yeah.
I'm sure they adjust based on what's going on, so it's difficult to really plan with that going on. But what's like the mission in 2021 that's different from 2020, if you don't mind me?
Well, 2021, we're going to have our annual spring gala in
Okay.
April. So that's going to be like a 70s good vibes only party. Like
Sure.
2020 is out the door.
Absolutely.
Let's welcome 2021.
Uh-huh.
And that's our big fundraiser for the year, is always
Okay.
in the spring. We just have a lot going on with the pandemic. We have grown
Sure.
more and more and more. It's just, Rachel, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
For sure.
So we are building a wellness center, which
Right.
will house medical, dental,
Amazing.
vet, mental health, physical therapy. All of that will be in these hill communities. And so she'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
That's really our big thing for
That's
2021.
awesome.
That's huge. Yeah,
and then we'll
it's
have
amazing.
some team trips down there.
Cool.
So
Very cool.
God willing.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I'm, very happy to introduce Rachel and Jason here. They just got back from Peru, and they were holding it down over there for Make a Miracle and doing a bunch of cool stuff. And being in Peru and out of the country during coronavirus and this time was probably just a lot, stressful, right? Because the country was on lockdown. Share a little bit about, Peru, but first, kind of what impact coronavirus had when you guys have been there in the last 8 months, whatever it was.
Yeah, so back in March 15th at around midnight, the Peruvian president announced that we were going under lockdown. We were going under quarantine for 2 weeks. And it was really shocking at the time because we only had about 80 cases at the time where he decided to shut down the whole country, close the borders.
Right.
And we were only supposed to have quarantine for 2 weeks, and it ended up being 107 days.
Wow.
And you only leaving your house to go get food and to go get medical attention. But other than that, you really had to stay inside the whole time.
Wow.
So that was very stressful for the country as a whole, I think, because especially in San Juan del Rigancho, where we live, people live day by day on their salary. They live paycheck to paycheck, which is their daily salary. And so when the president at midnight says you can't go to work tomorrow to almost 1 million people, what do?
Right.
What can you do? You don't have any way to even buy food for your family the next day. And the majority of them, because they don't have electricity, they don't have refrigerators, they don't have running water, they go to the market every single day to get their food. So that was another thing. They were, there was nothing really that they could do. And that is where we felt the most stress, because we felt like there was nothing we could do to help.
Right.
And especially, well, I'll get to that in a little bit, but we were trying to, figure out ways that we could go without putting our team members at risk, or even, getting in trouble with the police down there, because when we went to lockdown, there's police all over in every corner telling you, stopping you, asking, why are you out? What are you doing? We started out with trying to help some communities by giving them some, gift baskets of food. But that was really time consuming, and we didn't feel like we were making a very big impact because it was just a few families that we were able to do it with. And then Giovanna, who's our director of operations and is also Jason's sister, she had the idea to do something that they call an olla común, which means the common pot. And it's kind of like a soup kitchen where people come together and maybe one neighbor brings rice and the other potatoes and they end up making a dish. So we started thinking, hey, well, if we can donate to the food in bigger quantities to the olla común, and then the people within the community cook it and pass it out, that's something where we can make a bigger impact.
Sure.
So we started doing that little by little, growing. And we did it in, I think, 14 or 15 different communities. And once we got, after the quarantine ended and we kind of got the numbers, I think we served, or the community served with our food that we donated, around 200,000 meals during that 107-day period. And it was daily meals that were being given to these families who otherwise would have no way to.
Yeah, what would they do? If they can't go to work or they can't make any income to pay for the food that same day, they're living day to day. What was did the government have a plan set up? Or was it just you have to, not that I'm going to put them on the spot, but I mean, it's scary. I mean, maybe there wasn't a full plan. Like nobody was fully prepared for this.
What was our plan even here? It was very chaotic.
Yeah.
So I would assume it'd be something similar. But to have
maybe
not.
To have people like you guys there to think and innovate and think of ideas and not just, oh man, it's over. Like you guys were thinking about ways to be productive and continue helping, right? And that's a game changer.
Is that something you're doing now though? The like soup kitchen and creating that? Did that come out of COVID, or it kind of changed a little bit? You know what I mean?
So I will say that the olla común was kind of something, it was more of emergency relief, but we kind of realized that through the olla común, we met so many new communities. And one of the things that, is so time consuming for us in Peru is gaining the trust of the communities. It takes a long time.
Sure.
So kind of we were able to gain their trust a lot quicker because we came in their most desperate hour, and we're able to help them with something that's so essential, food, for them and their families. And that was something that we started to realize in all these communities that we were going to, that, okay, we're doing the olla común as a temporary emergency relief, but we can in a lot of communities, they do something called a comedor, which is like a more permanent soup kitchen, where they sell the food there for, 60 cents, $1, however much, for you to bring back to your family. And we realized that is something that we can do and help them with, so that they can have that relief for some families who can't afford to buy food for their whole family. And that's something we can do year round.
Right, more permanent kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's something that we started looking into helping out with, building them, and also donating food for the first year and a half, however long, until they kind of got into the rhythm of being able to, be self-sustaining. But that's something I've already built 2 permanent comedors. We're building another one this weekend. And then I think we have 1 or 2 more on the list as of now. So that's been something that's really exciting. And without COVID, we would have never been able to.
Idea.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's something with Make a Miracle. The best ideas always come to us in that
true.
way. You know, same
Sure.
thing with the scholarships.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that we thought of right away, but when the need came to us, we realized, this is something we can
And
do.
we wouldn't even necessarily be talking on Melman podcast if it wasn't for COVID. So I guess my point is that, you know, everybody focuses on the terrible things that have happened, which is true, but, you know, there are the silver linings of, you know, terrible circumstances, and that's just what, you know, we try to focus on.
You have to try to find them and, you know, nurture them and make it better. You know, I'm in a day-to-day problem solving, things like that, but imagine putting somebody that problem solves in just the business into a scenario of life or death, right? It's a lot of different problem solving. Even stronger minded person you might even need just to solve a business problem, right? I mean, you guys are in the, you know, you're in the trenches figuring it out on somebody's life. There's children that are hungry, thirsty. There might be cold or, you know, warm and
Sick.
I couldn't even sick. Imagine if they're sick, right? Now, who, in terms of the what you're setting up there, who runs it? Like, who's the one that's going to be there actually and making sure everything's smooth and the food's made and things like that? Who's in charge of that?
So they put someone in within each community. They kind of have their homeowners association.
Sure.
They have the directors of the community, and there is someone that's put in charge of the
Got
comedor.
it.
And they have, and you know, it's a great thing too, because the people who volunteer to cook certain days, a lot of times they'll give them their meals for free. So it's something that they kind of exchange for their services.
Sure.
And,
Right.
so, you know, so that they can get the
nice.
food for free. Yeah. So that was a big thing that came out of COVID. That was so cool. It was definitely a curveball though, especially having to go buy the food, and they were putting limits on how much food you can buy because people were stocking up and
Right,
you
of
were running
course.
out. So we would have to send certain team members, we'd have to go through the line like 3 or 4 times trying to get enough food, because when you're buying for 2 weeks for 14 different communities that are, you know, each one has like 100 different families.
Right.
That's a lot of food that we needed to buy.
That's insane.
So that was something, a big, another thing, which, you know, I think Jason could talk about, is going from no virtual learning to 100% virtual learning throughout the whole country. They had no online classes offered in Peru. And then all of a sudden, you know, elementary school to college is all online. And something for our students is most of them don't have computers. Most of them don't have internet in their houses. And so us trying to figure out how to help them to be able to study and so that they don't have to stop for the pandemic. And that's kind of where Jason came in and problem solving that and finding devices for them.
Yeah, tell us about that.
¿Quieres hablar un poco sobre buscando laptop, todo eso para los estudiantes, cambiando a aprendiendo todo en línea, cómo fue?
Sí. Quiero hablar. Bueno, en español.
En Spanish.
Sí.
Poco a poco.
Bueno, la experiencia para poder estudiar virtual en Perú generalmente fue diferente para todos. Y pues muchas personas, como Rachel lo mencionó, que en Perú todos viven del día a día. Muchas personas perdieron su empleo y dejaron de estudiar, porque hay jóvenes también que estudian, trabajan y estudian. Y como no había trabajo por el tema de la pandemia, dejaron de estudiar.
This is another point that he was making, which is such a good point, that he was talking about, you know, how I'd said living the day to day. That's how most Peruvian families live, and a lot of them too, and not just for food, but also for their education. There were a lot of students who, as my mom mentioned before, there's no financial aid, there's no type of government assistance, and you know they're living day to day. And a lot of times they'll save up money to be able to pay for their studies throughout the semester.
Right.
And when they don't have a job, how are they going to pay for their studies?
Y pues cuando los estudiantes de MEC empezaron a estudiar y empezaron a entrar a esta nueva etapa, lo que es la virtualización, no todos contaban con una laptop, ya que la institución o la universidad le ofrecía esos equipos.
And most of the students in San Juan, I would say, but a lot of our students too, they use the computer labs at the university, or we have our own study center through Make a Miracle where we have a computer lab where they can use too, and that was closed down too because of quarantine.
Right.
So how do they study?
Right.
Sí, y bueno, y luego cuando me tocó buscar laptops para los estudiantes, fue un poco, digamos, difícil porque había demasiada demanda con los equipos electrónicos, sobre todo lo que es laptop.
No lo vendían.
Y no lo vendían, y si lo vendían era el precio por el doble, por el tema de que no había importación.
And, because a lot of importing had stopped, they weren't really selling any type of technology. They weren't selling. We went to several different places trying to find laptops to be able to buy for our students to
Right.
loan, or however, just figuring out a way to do it. And even if the few that he found were 2-3 times the price that they
They
would
were
have
raising the
normally
price because
been
interesting.
sold for.
Of course.
Well, you go to totally virtual learning, but you don't give the option for people to be able to buy
Right.
the tools that they need. So it was kind of, stuck between a rock and
Yeah.
a hard place.
It's crazy. I mean, we take it for granted, like, quarantine. We have Uber Eats, we have DoorDash.
Right.
You know, you
all
can leave
from this.
That, right. My,
You know?
my son gets an email from the school. If you want a laptop, you can pick it up at this time. Like, it's a joke. I hate to say it, but compared to what the real world can be, like, we're nurtured and spoon-fed here beyond it. Even the people that are the worst off people here are probably still, compared to what's going on there.
Right.
It's just that you can't even compare. I'm thankful for it. Don't get me wrong, but it just, you have to compare. We're human beings. We're all human beings first, right? We're not just different countries and different things. We're humans. And to know that we have it so good here versus how hard it could be somewhere else, like, we're all humans, it doesn't matter, It just, we're spoiled.
Right.
Yeah, I hate to,
And it was just crazy too, seeing just the resilience of all these students, and some of them, with their cell phone, and it's not an iPhone, they have their
Right.
little cell phone, and some of them were doing their classes on their cell phone and typing up essays on their cell
Right,
phone,
right.
like just doing whatever they could to be able to continue with their education, because it is something that no one there takes for granted.
Right.
And so, when we heard about that, when Mom and I heard about these, they were on their cell phones, we're like, we gotta figure out something that we can do, because that is just, I can't imagine studying like that,
No, how could you? But they're still doing it because they're doing whatever it takes.
Right.
It's amazing.
Very true.
It's incredible. Please.
Yeah, the roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. No, it's okay. Thank you. Good point.
Yeah, exactly. Share, with us your, official title, or what, you're in charge of, or what you do with Make a Miracle, you and Jason yourself.
So I am the Director of Global Relations and Program Development. I have been in Peru for 3 years now, living there, and I kind of always describe myself as the bridge between Peru, Make a Miracle, and the United States, Make a Miracle.
Right.
I think that is so important with the distance, to have someone who is the communication between the two, but also someone, obviously I don't 100% know and understand their whole culture because I've only been there for a few years, but trying to be that bridge between the two cultures. Sometimes we'll come together on certain ideas, and the American Board of Directors will say one thing, and then our Director of Operations, Giovanna, will be like, we'll say another thing.
Right.
And I have to kind of,
Bridge the gap.
bridge the gap between those two, because it's a total different way
Sure.
of thinking. Like for example, with our wellness center that we're building, Giovanna was like, we don't need an engineer. We'll just get, someone out there who just to build it, the construction work, and obviously on the American side, they were like, no, like we need an engineer.
Yeah.
She's like, he just watches, like he just looks at what they're doing. And
Right.
I'm like, no, like
Engineer, architect, all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was something that I had to really like fight with her a lot and be like, no, like this is a non-negotiable.
Right.
But there's just things like that come up all the time.
Yeah, that's good to have insight from your point of view and their point of view.
Right.
They could have built it, but in 3 years it could have went down.
Exactly.
Now you built it the right way right from the beginning. It can last 50, 100 years.
Right.
So, and it's nothing that anyone's right or wrong. They're used to a different way. and you're seeing it a different way. So it's just bringing the ideas together and finding the solution. No one's
Right.
right or really wrong. They're just used to a certain different style, right?
It's just completely different, and that's
For sure.
something that I always have to do. I am totally not like a negotiator or like a
Yeah, right.
confrontational person,
Sure.
but that's something that
Yeah.
I've had to do. And then, Jason, ¿quieres explicar un poco de cómo conociste Make a Miracle, la hora que haces?
Bueno, sí, yo quiero explicar, bueno, conocí a Make a Miracle hace ya 5 años aproximadamente. Yo empecé desde chofer por mi hermanita. Yo conducía para Carolyn, para un equipo pequeño que recién iniciaba, que era 4 o 5 personas.
So he had met or gotten to know Make a Miracle about 5 years ago through his little sister, we actually met on our first trip down there like over a decade ago.
Wow.
So,
Right.
you know, he got to know about Make a Miracle about 5 years ago, and he was actually contracted to be the driver for us. So it was a really small team that had gone down, and Lady, his sister, had offered him up as to be kind of the driver for the week, and that's how we got to know him.
Cool.
Sí, y bueno, y veía pues que Caroline iba a hacer las donaciones de las casas y todo eso, y yo estaba sentado dentro del carro y quería, y veía lo que ellos hacían, todo eso, y yo decidí bajarme del carro y apoyar, y me sentía bien al poder ayudar a alguien sin recibir nada a cambio, ¿no? O sea, me sentía genial al ver la felicidad de la otra persona.
So, and as you know, the driver, a lot of times he'll sit in the car and wait with the car. But when he saw the small team that had come down from Make a Miracle building a house, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna go help them. And he was just talking about how great it felt, and he just felt so good. You know, doing something for somebody else without waiting for anything in return.
Right.
And that was just a new experience for him. And he felt great doing it.
Y bueno, así pasando el tiempo, Make a Miracle me dio la oportunidad de yo poder estudiar. Y bueno, seguí mis sueños, ya que siempre estuve trabajando porque apoyaba a mi familia, a mis hermanos, a mi mamá. No todos entre hermanos nos apoyamos. Y cuando Make a Miracle me dio la oportunidad de poder estudiar, bueno, dije, ahí vamos, tengo que seguir lo que quiero, porque anteriormente iba a postular a la policía, pero por tema del destino.
Yeah. So he had really been working since he was about 8 years old. He's one of 8 siblings. There's a lot of them. So he had been working since very young, just, you know, and even to when we first met him, he's like, all I did was work. That's all I ever did. I'm just trying to help my family in any way possible, help my siblings, help my mom. And, you know, he had tried to actually become a police officer, and then he had got his appendix taken out, like emergency surgery right before he's about to finish, and then they were like, well, you can't be a police officer anymore. It's like some sort of rule they have down there. Right. And so he just felt like
Makes sense.
Right.
You know?
Right. And he just felt like, you know, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna, you know, be working as a driver for the rest of my life. And then, you know, when he got the opportunity from Make a Miracle to study, he was like, all right, like, I got to do it. I got to give it my all.
Right.
And he's studying computer science, and he's actually about to finish in January or February.
Very
Cool.
nice. Very nice.
Graduate, yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah. De graduarte ya muy prontito.
And he's doing things because he cares. You brought up the whole point of it's not a transactional relationship. You give, I get. You're doing it because you want to do it, right? And that works in everyday life too. We see that in our business world or any world. When you're giving just to get something back or waiting for that IOU favor 6 months from now, it doesn't work like that. And a lot of people think like that. I hate to say, but a few that don't think like that are the ones that are going to keep rising.
Yeah, and that's something I think that we always encourage our students. So whenever we have, I mean, last year we built 30 houses, and so we call them like our army. They always come out. We get like 40, 50 students who come out and are passing. It's prefab houses. So you just pass them up in the hills. That's the hardest part.
Sure.
But we always tell the students, we say, you don't have to have a lot of money to be generous.
Right.
You can be generous with your time and with your acts. Like you can be generous with there's so many ways that you can be generous and make an impact without having to, have a lot of money. And I think that they love that. I think that they love that they are able to help their neighbors and having that feeling of just being able to help people who live in their communities and people who live in communities that are like their communities. Right. It's something that they love, and we never have to beg them to come out and help. They give up their Saturdays and they come out and they help us with our kids club or with building houses with no complaints, and they're always happy to do it, which is just amazing to see.
Sure.
Incredible.
I want to finish off or touch on without forgetting about it is the Miracle Wellness Center. Obviously correct me on however you guys are calling it there, but I think that's really cool because, education is one thing, but people can't, focus on their education or working if they don't feel well or they need medical attention. And that's something you guys are working on for 2021. I saw it on Facebook, looked really cool, little 3D graphic type thing, looked like, super modern. I mean, I thought it was really cool. So love to hear a little bit about, that, so anybody listening can kind of find out what that, project looks like.
Yeah, the Miracle Wellness Center is our biggest project to date. It's definitely been a process and a challenge for us, but we're so excited for it. The first floor we're going to have a big open space, and we're going to be able to do our kids club, Star Kids, there on Saturdays, which we did every Saturday before the pandemic started. We're also going to try to do lunch and learns with some of the moms of the community and the teenagers even, and looking at different things that we can help them with nutrition, with leadership skills, things like that. Maybe even we do workout classes, And we just kind of want it to be multi-use. And then the second floor, we are going to have an office for to do veterinarian clinics, medical clinics, dentist clinics.
Cool.
And then we're also going to, and this is my favorite part, on the third floor, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. On the third floor, we're going to have dorm rooms. Okay. And it's been a kind of a dream of mine, or something I've wanted to do for a while, is to be able to expand outside of Lima. There's a lot of even more impoverished areas outside of Lima that are up in the jungle or up in the mountains. And I would love for the opportunity of students to be able to come to Lima and be able to get their education there and be able to stay in our wellness center. Or even if one of our students is in a bad situation and they're home, they can come and they have a safe place to come in and stay while they get back on their feet. So that is something that I'm so excited for too. I think that it's going to help us in the future to be able to expand to other regions and be able to expand our reach as Make a Miracle.
That's great. It sounds amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Very cool.
Yeah. No, I love it. I feel like we can chat for hours and hours and hours, about anything. This stuff is very cool because it's also very new to, us and, Peru and what's happening, outside of our day-to-day lives, which is really cool. Very just appreciative. There's obviously people and families like you guys that come together, and good people as well to, just do something different. And it's just so outside of yourself, which I like. Obviously, it's probably one of the better feelings, serving, giving, rising someone else up as opposed to yourself. That's the best. It is. So, we just wanted to thank you guys. If there's something that, you want to, plug in before we kind of tune out, I just want to say I appreciate everybody for coming on and sharing your message. All the information will be, attached to this video in our description, just to share with our audience and other people that find it, what you guys are doing and your story. Because it's just super cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having us.
It was great.
Of course.
Gracias.
Me gusta apoyar y hablar sobre lo que Meg hace por los estudiantes, porque yo como estudiante siento que Meg ha cambiado mi vida demasiado.
He said he loves talking about Make a Miracle and loves being able, because he feels like as a student that Make a Miracle has changed his life. So he always loves to
Thank
do
you for
whatever
coming
he can.
on. It was great. Thank you guys for coming on. We really enjoyed it. It's a different one. Usually it's all business, and business is an amazing different one. I enjoyed it. Thanks for putting it together.
Thank
Appreciate
you guys.
Yeah,
cool.
It was
Thank
awesome.
you for inviting us out.
Yeah.
This was so
Rock and
cool.
roll.
Yeah, it was cool.